Yeah, uh, a very warm, good morning to all of you. And it's, as the webinar topic is also on food, which I think most of us have an affinity towards. I can see more than, almost 85 participants on this webinar. And, because obviously because it's food and there is, so much of, kind of talks about what can be done in food processing. So obviously there is a lot of interest in the sector. Firstly, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Guru Prasad Bangle. I'm the CTO at Solution Buggy. And I'm an MBA from IIM Bangalore and have about 15 years of consulting experience prior to starting off with Solution Buggy. I would like to welcome all of you for the webinar. This webinar is basically to understand the opportunities in the food manufacturing sector. Like all of you here are very keen on, either setting up your own plant or, doing your own brand or getting into a contract manufacturing kind of a role or, anything that deals with food manufacturing as such, right? So this webinar is part of a series of webinars that we have been conducting at Solution Buggy, which is a technology partner for the Vision Karnataka Foundation, and which in turn is the execution arm for the projects from UNDP related to the MSME segment. Just to give you an understanding of what Solution Buggy does, it's a technology platform to connect the manufacturing industries with the experts across India. We have more than 60,000 industries and about 8,000 experts on the platform. So with that, I would want to, open the forum and start introducing the two dynamic speakers that we have today on the webinar. Firstly, it's Mr. Shivkumar Durarajan, who is BTech in Industrial Biotechnology and an MTech in Food Process Engineering. Currently, he is working with global leaders in rice processing, spice processing, and also value-added spice products. He's been a project lead as well as in the execution arm, and currently he is the founder of Acronym Group of Companies. So that's Mr. Shivkumar, and the next speaker which we have on the panel today is Mr. Vikram Sankar Narayanan. He's been, a pioneer in the promotion of millets and nutri cereals in India, which is basically a source of micronutrients based protein with and he has a humongous intention of taking this global platform and also in and he has done a lot of work, especially in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Andhra Pradesh as well. Currently, he's working towards a kind of a environmentally sustainable and a financially sustainable model, and working with both the agriculturists as well as with the other key stakeholders in the food chain. He's having two companies, Bone Technologies Private Limited and Sanlac Agro Industries Private Limited. And Vikram is an alumni of LSE, London School of Economics and Political Science. So a warm welcome to both the panelists, and again to all these guests who have gathered on this webinar. I would start off with Mr. Shiv Kumar to understand, what are the key opportunities that you see in the food sector today?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for the introduction, kind introduction, Guru. It's been a pleasure. This is my second time joining in this platform that Solution Buggy is conducting, and which is really good. Now, I'm also working with a lot of leaders. Now, people want to do something, but a proper execution platform is very less. As the execution platform, wherein we give complete solution. I think Solution Buggy is doing a wonderful job of that. So my congratulations to Solution Buggy. And coming back to your question, now, is there an opportunity and what are the categories in which, taking the current scenario, and the post-COVID scenario. Now, COVID has changed a lot of things now. Instead of conducting this meeting of online, face to face, we are having this meeting online. That itself is a huge change, and people are getting used to this. I used to be a business development manager, and business development was all about face-to-face meetings. Basically, you want to build trust with the person, your client, and that personal visits are very important. But the situation is completely changed now. So that is a plus and that is a minus. Now, moving on to the category of products or in food sector, at least, what are the categories that are picking up now? Nutraceutical is something that is picking up quite rapidly in India. I mean, it's booming. It's really booming in the past 6 months, I would say, because I'm also getting a lot of inquiries related to nutraceuticals, and this is coming from two factors. Number one, because of this COVID, people awareness towards a healthy living, I would say, has increased by at least by 20-25 percentage. Now people are veering towards healthy food, uh, eating healthy food, or some kind of nutraceutical which will aid them with their well-being. So keeping that in mind, the entire industry has boomed, and there are many startups who are venturing into this, and there are established players who are launching new nutraceutical products these days. So that is a major industry that is in the boom right now, and I believe that is going to increase. It's not going to decrease anytime soon. The both the demand for nutraceutical product as well as the opportunity that lies in that particular field is going to increase. Now, the second thing, I've been working with some restaurateurs, some food chains, major food chains in India. Every major food chain is veering towards healthy menu options. For example, KFC, right? I've been in talks with a client of mine out of Dubai. They are planning to start a restaurant chain, which is basically air fried chicken. They want to launch a non-vegetarian chicken fried chicken restaurant just like a KFC, but it should be an air fried one. So they want to basically wear fast food, but a healthy fast food. Also, if you look at this fast food sector, in the past 3 years, 3 or 4 years, Subway has become a major player. Actually, Subway has overtaken McDonald's, and Subway is right now the dominant player in the market with more retail chains. This is as of 2020. Now, why? Subway is just a sandwich place, and surprisingly, the second place is of course McDonald's. The third place is surprisingly held by a coffee house. We all know Starbucks. So this is a trend that I'm seeing. People uh, some the mentees have built their profile over a very long period of time, so they are surviving. But there is an upcoming opportunity for any healthy food chain offering. Definitely, there is an offering. Also, I believe because of your online aggregators, it's quite easy to start your cloud kitchen or a small restaurant these days and offer good healthy food to people, and there are lot of takers for it. The taker for healthy food have increased dramatically. We all can't cook in our home, healthy food all the time. So we tend to go out from time to time. Now people go out and eat your fast foods, but now healthy fast food is becoming a trend now. So this is two major opportunities that I see. Now this is in the B2C sector, means direct to consumer. Now there is a huge opportunity which is booming in the B2B sector also. For example, there are many ingredients which are coming from China, and right now because of the bans, Chinese imports, yes, Chinese imports are obviously coming, but the flow of the Chinese import has decreased by about 10 percentage because of some people, some business unwillingness to work with Chinese companies because they want a sustained supply chain. If something happens because of political economic scenario, they don't want that supply chain to be cut. So they're looking at Indian manufacturer in business to business sector. I would name particular ingredients. One of those key ingredients is vitamin C, ascorbic acid. Now the demand for ascorbic acid has increased I would say about 30% in the last 8 months. And because of the trade ban which was in place 2 months ago till 3 months ago, the demand scenario slowly increased, and all the manufacturers in India are looking for manufacturers of ascorbic acid inside India. So that is a major ingredient, one of the major ingredients that is of a key importance in this COVID scenario and post-COVID scenario. Now, other ingredient is your nutraceutical ingredient, like for example, your curcumin from turmeric. The demand of curcumin has increased so much now. So a lot of people are manufacturing, of course, but there are a lot of imports which are coming from outside India. So that demand also increased. One of interesting ingredient of which the demand of that ingredient increased. That ingredient is asafoetida. We all know hing. Everybody uses in the cooking. Now, the raw material of hing is 100% imported. There is no hing raw material grown or processed in India. We all do processing, post harvest processing. Nobody does harvest, or nobody cultivates the product. Now, government of India is giving a lot of incentives to farmers who are trying to grow hing asafoetida gum, to manufacture asafoetida gum in India. So that is also a major industry. If you look at the global scenario, India is the largest consumer of asafoetida, and that is 100% imported. So I believe in B2B scenario, that particular ingredient has a huge significance in the coming days. So these are some of the opportunities. Of course, food industry, I would say this is the best time to be an entrepreneur and start experimenting in the market, because people are turning from global food stuff to Indian offerings in terms of healthy Indian offerings, in terms of nutritious Indian offerings, and the trend will catch up for sure. I believe this is a good opportunity open right now.
Sure, sure. So two words that I got with Mr. Shivkumar, and I would want to extend this to Mr. Vikram. He mentioned about nutraceuticals, and next he mentioned about healthy fast food. And I believe health food is something which is very close to your heart, Vikram. So with that in mind, what do you think is the key opportunities in the food sector today?
Well, at the outset, I'd like to thank you for providing me with the opportunity to share my views, and I hope these views empower the audience on this webinar. Secondly, hearing from Mr. Shivkumar, his views were spot on, actually, with regards to secondary processing, primary processing, including the value chain. Now, coming back to your question on nutraceuticals, nutraceuticals certainly has huge scope in the future. By huge, I know it's a very relative term, but I'm talking about it can grow into a multiple thousand crore industry at the moment. And it's right, because if you're looking at targeted customers, if you're looking at people suffering from certain ailments who need a shift in diet, but still at the same time is palatable, with the kind of food technology available today, you can cater to those sub-segments within nutraceuticals as well. Like if you're looking at celiac-related ailments, if you're looking at diabetes-targeted food, and it's not just a question of, before you had a kind of perception that nutraceutical products mostly target the classes and not the masses. Whereas today we have the resources within India, localized resources within India, such as if you're taking the case of Karnataka, ragi. Ragi, for example, if you're looking at the World Bank understanding of below poverty line incomes, they can still address a family of 4 with a 70 rupee investment of ragi flour every week, which can actually address the calcium and iron requirements of a family of 4. So you're talking 70 rupees. Within $1 a week, you can address that over 4 meals for a family of 4. Now, that is at one end of the spectrum. But if you're going to the other end of the spectrum, more complex products, which would, of course, involve a lot of investment and hence cannot address the masses, but just the classes at the moment, upper middle income and high income, they can also be addressed. And there's a huge opportunity in that space. And if you're looking at volumes in the country, you've still got a population of 1.3 billion people, be it from the spectrum of people who need state-supported meals or state-supported commodities through the public distribution system and all of those. But you're also talking about even, say, the 1% of the population, which translates to 13 million people who are forming the classes, rather. I mean, you're talking the upper middle income and high income groups. So you've got this wide spectrum that entrepreneurs can actually cater to, working either with the public establishment or the private establishment, doing it on a B2B concept, wherein, for example, if they want to just focus on that commodity, converting that through secondary processing into a more targeted product. But there are people who don't necessarily have the means to build the whole value chain, but would rather be strong in the market through their brands. That can be a B2B engagement exercise, contract manufacturing provided for them. So multiple brands in the country can actually cater to those multiple market segments. So I certainly second what Mr. Shivakumar had said. Coming back, after nutraceuticals, you wanted me to focus on another term. What was that again?
Yeah, that was something he said as healthy fast food.
Healthy fast food, if we're talking, is certainly something people are getting more conscious about post-COVID. That is certainly something that is substantiated, but this even started before. You're talking about the phase at which non-communicable diseases started rising in the country, and people had to actively involve their addressing this through their diets. So it was not really a proactive initiative like post-COVID, but it was a reactive initiative of consumers. It was not something people were comfortable with the commodities that were promoted by the Green Revolution, which addressed hunger at one point in time. But right now, with heavy gluten-based diets, people wanted to seek alternatives. Consumers started seeking alternatives. Where I found this is while working with the government of Karnataka on the national and international trade fairs, where I was a lead coordinator. In those exercises, we realized that people were looking for options but did not know what to do with what they had. It was a reaction as opposed to a proactive thing. Most of the people who came were people who were suffering from an ailment and who wanted to see an alternative. The others were trying to prevent further things by proactively making their diet into medicine per se. But right now that we see a proactive reaction from the masses, not just a reactive reaction, from the masses, wherein they're taking this up. So yes, I mean, healthy fast food is certainly an option, especially with our lifestyle changes where people, I wouldn't say they're lethargic about what to do. One is they're ignorant about how to use these health foods. Secondly, the other thing was that it's also the fact that, the lifestyle that people lead due to work commitments also does not enable them. So healthy fast foods is certainly a space where even sub-brands, like for example, if you're talking about homemade idlis with batter, I think there's a company, ID Fresh.
Yeah.
Fresh has started moving into healthier versions of idlis, for example. So that's a ready-to-cook model at home. You have companies like Urban Millets, for example, who are also contract manufacturing for other brands, but also under their own brand as well. They're addressing it in the form of ready-to-eat also, in terms of snacks. But for food outlets, it was initially emerging as a very niche space like spa food and spa cooking, but it's starting to migrate into the fast food mass consumption scale as well, be it at the low-cost level, wherein, for example, a ragi dosa is also given as an alternative to rice-based dosas in our darshinis. I've seen that in Karnataka when engaging with darshinis at the mass level. Whereas also you're looking at fast food chains, established fast food chains who are looking at healthy alternatives, and they're sourcing ingredients locally. Because mainly the supply chain disruptions that happened thanks to COVID, and also the focus on localization from the establishment through incentivization of for stakeholders along the value chain, like myriad initiatives and schemes from the government have actually aided in localizing things as well. So it's not that they need to import most of their things, except I would say I'll come to that later actually, if you've got more questions. Yeah.
Right. So continuing on that, Mr. Vikram, the audience here obviously understands that food is a growing sector in India and they obviously want to get into it. So that is the rosy picture part of it. So continuing this one, what do you think are the key challenges and key pitfalls or risks that they have to look at when they come into the food sector manufacturing?
It's in the value chain, primarily the value chain, stakeholder engagement, linkages between value chain stakeholders, right from backward integration, that's at the field level, processing, and forward integration. It's only large companies such as ITC who, for example, have the eChopal structure that can actually engage as the primary stakeholder along all the activities of the value chain, right till the consumer level. But whereas where I see challenges is to link, for example, each stakeholder in such a manner that the forward and backward linkages are customized for certain products. Like, for example, the challenge today I see is how do they break the structures of cash crops, right at the primary cultivation, primary processing level and secondary processing level. Now, in India, we've always been focusing on commodities like rice and wheat in the dry staples, which essentially has left a large gap in the health food arena. Like, for example, with millets, since it's not a cash crop, it's certainly a crop which will not burden the establishment. The establishment burden, for example, subsidizing seeds, pesticides, fertilizers, transport, all of these can be taken away for certain commodities like minor millets, which are not yet recognized, though there's been a gazetted notice in 2018 requesting for these to be brought into the PTS system, provide an MSP and all of these. But the incentive here is that, it grows in areas which are otherwise neglected, like dryland agriculture spaces. And if you're looking at the mandate of the government of doubling farmers' incomes, that can be established in areas where, for example, agriculture is not traditionally done. Now, at this point, post-COVID, a lot of communities are migrating back to their local areas for the lack of better work or lack of opportunities, but they're looking at their small fragmented land holdings as income resources when they're away from their traditional resources like labor and other places. We've had examples where, for example, we have installed a primary processing unit for minor millets in a once Naxal-infested tribal area in Andhra Pradesh. But as and when those people, we install the primary processing unit, from a backward integration perspective, these people have a very simple logic. We don't have to spend money on fertilizers or pesticides. There's a climate smart crop. It can address high temperatures, and it grows on very damaged soils as well. And at the same time, it's not as labor intensive, and they're able to make that income within their spaces. But the primary factor is that establishment of primary processing facilities. And then from a forward integration perspective, the processors are not marketing it under their own brand, but they're doing B2B bulk because they're trying to capture the diversity in this country. They're sending their products to multiple states where the same commodities is consumed in multiple formats. So the opportunity is converting that raw commodity into multiple formats, which is a given emergence to multiple entrepreneurs coming into that space. An example being in the Organics and Millets 2017 National Trade Fair, we had 40 exhibitors, but there were more than 300 the next year, and most of them doing value-added commodities, and sourcing it from stakeholders where clusters were developed by the vision of Mr. Krishna Bairigowda at that time. And he'd established clusters, implemented it on the ground. So these processors, in other words, knew where to source it from, and they were targeting different types of consumers and different formats of food. So there's huge opportunities in this space. The challenges are there, but they can be overcome if the value chain linkages are built. And we need some establishment support in that regard. It won't be undertaken by the private sector alone. Primarily through incentivization, not necessarily incentivization. Because once there's incentivization, people will capture the opportunity for lack of a better choice, and then see how they can go. In entrepreneurship, is planned. It goes with time. It evolves with what I had started in the beginning is completely evolved to something beyond my vision at this day. This time.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Shivkumar, so obviously people, understand that food is a large sector, and like how you are in your own words said that you can go right from, nutraceuticals to, health foods, or it could be mass consumption kind of foods. People are, generally interested. What kind of, if today an entrepreneur is wanting to invest about 1 to 5 CR in the food category this month, what is the kind of, product lines that he can look at?
Yeah. So, this is a very primary question. Before coming into the category that an entrepreneur can invest in, the major issue is accessing the strength of the entrepreneur. What is their own strength? Where do they stand? What is the value that they're going to bring to their own business? So if you look at any entrepreneur, right? People should not think they have the money and they can become the businessman. That's not how it works. You have the money, you have a particular set of talents. You don't need to have all the set of talents, but you need to assess what is you might be good at marketing, you might be good in terms technicalities, you might be really good at technicalities, you might be really good at your R&D, or you might be really good at managing a supply chain, or you have your own established links. So these are the determining factors of any entrepreneurs before they come to start any industry, right? I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs fail in over the course of 10 years. The major failure issues are primarily because of only one reason. It's not because the business is developing, because they didn't start their own assessment before they start the industry. It might be one thing that I will often hear is partnership issues. It all stems from assessing your partners or your own capabilities. You need to bring something to the table. If you're not bringing something to the table, you're just an investor, you're not at all an entrepreneur. So that is the major important role. Now coming back to your question, so if you have say 1 to 5 crore, what is the easiest way? Now I'll this question can be answered with a question. What is that exactly you want to do? Because right, if you want to build your marketing strength, right? You can just buy and sell commodity. You don't need to invest in anything. We're really good at marketing. For 1 crore, you buy a commodity and sell it for 1.5 crores. You make your money then and there. No issue. Now, the second set of entrepreneur are people. The entrepreneur category can be split into three. Primary category is your traders. Every trader is an entrepreneur. So I want to do a business. I buy commodity for 1 crore. I sell it for 1.5 crore, make my half crore profit and develop from there. That is the first type of entrepreneur. That is the highest number of entrepreneur in any given country. Most of them are traders. They trade commodities. They are really good at talking to people, convincing people to buy the commodity. Good at basically math, basic mathematics. How much to buy, how much to sell. This is one category. Now the second category, people who want to build brands. They are brand people. So that can also be done within 1 to 5 crores. Now in this case, in the case of brand building, your marketing is the key strategy of everything, and marketing along with your brand name. For example, Tata Group, right? Tata Group has such a global reputation that any product you sell in Tata Group will sell for sure. There is no two thoughts about it. People will go for it. People trust the brand. And Apple, for example, we know Apple is about 30 to 40% more expensive for the same hardware, for the same function. Why do people go to the particular brand? Yes, it has a brand value. Whatever Apple is selling, yes, it will sell for sure. So that is the brand building mentality. And this one requires a lot of patience. Brands are not built overnight. And the major hurdle is the confidence of the entrepreneur in brand building. See, I can be a trader without no self-confidence at all. Trading is all about changing hands, and your face is not known to anyone. But if you want to build a brand, right, somebody should stand behind the brand and push the brand to its next level. There is human set of hands involved in there, and there is this huge confidence factor involved. See, Elon Musk, right, single-handedly mantling three industries. Elon Musk, I'm not saying Elon Musk is the greatest inventor or greatest entrepreneur or greatest businessman, but he single-handedly manages the brand. People trust him and they trust his brand and deliverance. Of course, they went through all the struggle and everything, but the confidence, right? The morale that you boost your own team and the consumers says a lot about brand building. Apple has also built on a great legacy from its founders. So every brand, Microsoft is about, see, Microsoft, all your big brands, right, are synonymous with the brand owners. We look at any major brands, right? It's all synonymous. McDonald's, it's the McDonald brothers, So KFC, it's Colonel Sanders. Any brand, right? If you look at it, there'll be a people, and the people will be very visible in a brand building setup. So the third category of entrepreneurship is all about technicalities. So in this scenario, you'll be a great guy who has technological knowledge, marketing knowledge, but you'll be part of some big setup. For example, I would again say Apple. Apple co-founder, right? And even for Microsoft co-founder, co-founders are not known. The brand is taken care by a single guy, and there is co-founder who are intellectually supplying a lot of things. So This is another set of entrepreneur who want to build a brand, of course, but they will be rather in the back end. So consider this as the back end guy. He will take care of all the back end. Front end is built by a brand guy. So these are the three set of entrepreneurship that anybody can do, and you need to figure out where you fit in the scenario. So you can be broadly, any entrepreneur can be broadly classified into these three categories. You need to really figure out, and there is another type of entrepreneur, purely investment type entrepreneur. So I have say 1 crore. I might have an idea, might not have an idea, but I want to double the money, triple the money. Yes. In that scenario, you trust a set of people. You become like a venture capitalist. So that is the fourth type. I would not call them as entrepreneur, but rather they are into money multiplying or venture capitalist kind of mentality. So you can do all these four scenarios. There are people who have succeeded in all the scenario from a very low level, from rag to riches story. You can find all set of people in this all four category. You need to figure out where you are fitting in. And of course, if you're fitting in category 3, you will come up with your own ideas. Even the brand building entrepreneur will come up with his own ideas. Trading entrepreneur is not like that. He basically buys and sells whichever is cheaper. And even venture capitalists are not like that. They look at the numbers and go for it. Now, this is the kind of question you should ask yourself. Post that, there are many people like Solution Buggy, which will offer them a lot of help in setting up the factory. 1 crore is a substantial investment for business. So if we have 1 crore, we can definitely succeed provided you have right set of people who work with you. That is very, very important. You can't make sound with clapping with one hand. You need to clap with both hands to make that sound, sound heard to everyone. So because you need to build a team basically. You need to figure out what is your contribution in your team. So that is I think 1 crore to 5 crore, anybody in this meeting, right? Even less than that, people can definitely start any kind of entrepreneur business.
Right. Thank you, Shivkumar. Continuing on that question, when you say a new entrepreneur who wants to get into the food sector, some of the typical questions that they come up with when they talk to us is also that, can I do something like, about 70% I can, manufacture for somebody, like contract manufacturing, and 30% I would want to build my brand. That's a key question which comes. Although the ratio might, keep varying. Somebody says, I want to do 50-50, just to get that confidence in the market. Because obviously he's a new entrepreneur, or he must be an entrepreneur before, but food might be a new sector for him. A host of questions running through his mind. But this is the question which is constantly coming up, saying that I want to do a little bit of contract manufacturing and a little bit of building my own brand. What is your advice to entrepreneurs like that?
Yeah, this question comes to a lot of people. My only advice is that you hold the IP. Don't think about who manufactured your product. There are many people. Apple is not a manufacturing company. Apple getting a contract manufacturer, but they hold the IP. IP is the key for any manufacturer. You hold your IP. If you're a food manufacturer, you give your own recipes. And in whatever way you protect those recipes, and that is the only, your brand depends on the recipe. It's the product depends on the recipe. The final product depends on how the components are assembled together. So that is the only thing that people need to concentrate on. Manufacturing, you don't need to do it, because if you look at established players, right, everybody does part contract manufacturing. Nobody does 100% manufacturing on their own. That is because you lack a lot of capital. If your budget is say 1 crore, if you want to do your own manufacturing, you will completely absorb that 1 crore in just setting up the unit and running the show. What about your marketing cost? That is where people will get stuck. Unless you are bringing something, unless you own a patent for a machine, or the technology is something extraordinary and something which has a lot of IP value, and you don't want people to copy it, yes, you can put up your own manufacturing. If that is not the scenario, I would rather say you put your budget in terms of your rotating money. Don't put it in capex. Put it in your day-to-day activity, marketing activity, sales activity. purchase of raw material, selling of raw material. So that is the point where money should be put in. Capex, my suggestion is for any entrepreneur, don't put your money in capex. That is very, very important. That is where people will stick. For example, if you put up a machinery and you could, at the end of the day couldn't able to sell your products, your machinery will go to waste. And I see a lot of second-hand machinery coming into the market, both big and small machineries. That is people, the fact your manufacturing facility, right? Forget about that if you want to be an entrepreneur. Concentrate only on marketing and the IP which your product holds. That's it. These are the only two things you need to concentrate on. You can, at any given point in time, you can set up your own manufacturing unit. But if you are setting up in the first stage and if you are losing it, then it will be a problem. No, you're
not audible. You're not audible.
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Vikram, a question to you. You have obviously, been helping entrepreneurs, and you have been an entrepreneur yourself. So, what do you think, are the things that an entrepreneur should keep in mind when he wants to get into the food sector, and where this investment is in the range of 1 to 5 CR?
So I would say it's in addressing gap, because you must take into consideration, for example, the second thing what Mr. Shivakumar said.
If you're looking at the processing, primary processing space in rice and wheat, there's at being highly optimistic, it's only 60% of capacity utilization is there in primary processing. There are multiple dead units across the country. Now, getting into that activity would not be incentivized. But what are the various products you can take from, say, rice and wheat? I'm taking that as an example, but that applies across commodities as well. If you're going to invest in that, an entrepreneur will not survive on the margin structures that the large primary processors are working on to market these commodities, and they will die a very fast death, and a very painful one, especially if they've invested capital on manufacturing. Now, for example, let me tell you, I will work on my own mistake in the beginning. Like over the course of my journey, I've made certain mistakes and my own mistake. Now, initially, I underestimated the challenges that one will face in marketing a product through a brand. But I had the capacity to be able to use my capital to also build up on just the primary processing, which is my initial plan. I listened to it. I didn't listen to myself. And then I went ahead and I failed miserably in the beginning, trying to overstretch my my capacities due to certain ambitions at that point in time. I didn't go stage by stage by stage by stage. I identified the gap, yes. But how far, what roles do I want to play? So seconding what Mr. Sivakumar had mentioned, you need to identify your role within that value chain and capitalize on your strengths. And you have to be conscious. 1 crore of rupees might sound like a lot of money. Even 5 crores might sound like a lot of money. But if you're looking at working capital structures, your cash flow models, is it a credit-based structure? Is it working capital positive? Is it working capital negative? Those are based on your capital understanding of what resource you have. And identifying the gap and converting that gap into an opportunity, provided you understand what skills you have, is essential to get this going. You understand? And starting small, it's nicer to make mistakes when your investment is small to start with. And you're learning. There's no one-stop solution for this. Like Mr. Shivakumar gave you a range of options, for example, in what kind of entrepreneur you want to be. But even in that, your experience based on your environment at that point in time is also something that you need. So a strong understanding of who your target customers are. What is the gap you're trying to address? Is that space saturated or not? Do you have certain skill sets, and do you have that scope to basically tap that opportunity based on the gap? Is very important. And like it said, you have to basically have a key understanding of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you have to accept your weaknesses. And those can be filled, because mind you, in this country, we have skill sets across the spectrum. It's about bridging those skill sets together to make your brand or your product, per se, not necessarily a brand, but a product, something great. Like, for example, if you're looking at pharma as a parallel sector, pharma there are thousands of brands, hundreds of brands making paracetamol. But do you want to be a brand player in a market which is saturated, which has excessively developed, which is highly developed forward value chains? Would you like to bring, as an entrepreneur, if you're a chemist, can you make a certain tweak in that particular thing, get the IP for it, and then contract manufacture it even with someone else, and then provide the IP which will be shared by the marketers in that space? That is something that's I'm just giving you one option. Or do you have infrastructure to basically or build synergies with other infrastructure holders in that space to basically create a product which you can further sell? Or are you just a brand which is strong but that is looking at diversifying its product portfolio? Also, so at what stage you are in, what your skill sets are, what's the opportunity out there, now you're addressing a gap, what's the saturation level of players in that area, and how are you going to perform in the market is another question also. Yeah. I'll give you an example actually. There was one entrepreneur who wanted to start with base commodities and brand this commodity and sell it. But understanding the stakeholders in the forward value chain, that person did not take that into consideration. But as soon as he brought his brand of dal into the store, one distributor of a company, of a product, said that we will stop supplying you salt if you are going to keep their dal. Continue buying our dal, and we will also supply you salt, because the customers had the thing. So this person was completely wiped out in the forward value chain. Like I'm talking about the super stockist even, and the retailers of that thing. If they're going to, they didn't even go to the distributor level. At the super stockist level itself, there was a thing. His brand didn't move, and so identifying a gap, seeing the saturation level at the gap in the forward value chain, and understanding the strengths of sourcing your products in the back end of your value chain is extremely important. Extremely important. Yeah.
True. Some of the key things emerging from the discussion until now is basically start small, and if you are making mistakes, obviously you are making smaller mistakes. Next is, even if you are looking at setting up your own manufacturing unit, do not, initially at least look at manufacturing yourself. Try to outsource, learn from the lessons or learn from the mistakes, and then obviously expand, and then expand on your own skill sets. Because at the end of the day, whatever you invest depends on your skill sets, right? Are you good at marketing? Are you good at production? Are you good at back-end value chain? Or the host of other skill sets that you bring to the table. So continuing this, before I ask the next question, I would like to tell all the participants to, if they have any questions, they can type it in the chat window. And after these next few set of questions, we will be taking up the questions one by one on the chat window. Vikram, just continuing on that, obviously everybody is affected by the COVID scenario and the pandemic situation and all. So what do you think is the effect that an entrepreneur will have, or what is it that either the the pros or cons of starting up during this time?
There were multiple options during huge supply chain disruption. Products were reached. Products which would otherwise take 3 days to reach from B2B levels were taking 2 months to reach. How do you manage overheads was a big question. A lot of companies just died away in this period because they couldn't manage their overheads. A lot of capital was stuck in places. Companies that owed other people money, their suppliers money, did not have capital to pay them. I mean, there are multiple cases which have been blacked out, actually, for the lack. I mean, because the establishment's also scared whether that kind of news that circulated around will discourage the masses and make the situation look worse than what optically appears to them. I think the major thing is supply chain disruptions, value chain disruptions, and cash flow factors, and managing basic overheads, keeping people on board, keep making the company survive, keeping those people with specific skill sets on their payroll properly. Because mind you, it could have all stopped, but restarting is a big challenge. Restarting is a big challenge. Your entire scenario, your service delivery models have completely changed. People had invested huge sums of money. Like, for example, if you're taking restaurants, new restaurants that were emerging, suddenly so many have died out, but they've invested a lot in the interior decoration, they've invested a lot of money on things, but suddenly they have to deliver their food or provide their service delivery through models which are not easily sustainable for them. I mean, we've seen large protests from, say, restaurators, where they're saying that we cannot sustain based on the margins that the distributors are actually giving. Like, you know, like Swiggy and all of these as well. A lot of them felt that under that model, we cannot sustain. How long can we stretch this for? And through the stretching process, I mean, it's and then again, I mean, who's to blame for this? I mean, there's nobody. Everyone's trying to do the best they can to sustain things. But as a country, with our population size, we cannot do things such as furloughing. The government cannot fill in the space of, say, for example, in developed market economies like in the UK or the US, where they've had furloughing schemes provided by the government. So we cannot afford that over here. So we really can't. It's from our country's context. This period is going to cause disruptions for which I think conditioned behaviors will evolve and new service delivery models will emerge from this. A lot of older service delivery models are going to change completely, or they will be obsolete even. Like in a matter of 2 years, you condition behaviors due to environmental factors. By environment, I don't mean your surrounding factors. Actually, that will condition different forms of consumer behavior. How do we influence that consumer behavior is going to be another challenge for marketeers. How is the format of whatever product you're delivering, it be it the primary commodity or value-added product, how is that going to be delivered to the consumer? And then again, there's also, this period has created extreme caution in the market. So a lot of people who are strained for resources will now not be having disposable income for activities beyond their basic needs. It's huge, and that's a macro phenomena. That's going to influence how service delivery is provided for any product. And it's only time that can tell, because we don't know how far this is going to go, what kind of damages it's going to take. And if I were an entrepreneur, I would wait and watch for some time by taking baby steps. Like, use this period for market exploration, for your consumer understanding. Personally, in this environment, I would be very nervous to invest money given the factors. I wouldn't say I am that kind of a high risk taking entrepreneur. I like to weigh my risks and opportunities and see how do we deploy capital at this point in time? What kind of product must I diversify?
Perfect. So what I hear is basically that, the time is obviously, there is no good or bad time to start off. And since everybody has kind of pressed the reset button, either is he a new entrepreneur or is an existing entrepreneur, like how you were telling, there has been a reset in the supply chain, there has been a reset in the raw material procurement, and things which were taking 3 to 4 days are taking 2 months. So obviously, for a entrepreneur who can think and who can, see where the opportunities are. So there is obviously opportunities in supply chain, one. Two, there is opportunities in better procurement models. Three, I would believe in, the cold storage and other facilities which are, closer, which can be set up closer to the manufacturing units. So these are some of the, kind of opportunities that people can look at. And also, not the right forum to bring it up, but then the government has been doing a phenomenally kind of support in terms of the Atmanirbhar Bharat schemes and things like that. Would you want to highlight a little bit on that?
Are you addressing this question?
Yeah, Vikram.
All right. So in terms, the government identified food processing as a sunrise sector in the country. And they've worked very well with multiple schemes at this point in time, which are being implemented across the country at the center, addressing stakeholders along the value chain, from the farmers to processors, to transport agencies, to manufacturers, to processors, to right through. They're trying to incentivize every step along the value chain and value chain stakeholders along the way. And there's tangible evidence of them doing so. Another main focus on the establishment is import substitution. I mean, there was a thrust before itself, but it wasn't as accentuated as at the moment, because they've seen that post-COVID, they want to fill in, plug the gaps. If you're taking the primary processing of dals, pulses, we're a net importer of pulses in the country as of now, but there's a huge opportunity in that space where they're trying to incentivize processes. They're even trying to bridge in when capital is not available. They're making capital accessible. I mean, making facilities available through common facility centers. I think entrepreneurs need to find and use these common facility centers as a place where they can just do whatever stage in processing they can do, pay the small fee, but not have the burden of infrastructure. I think that's a huge step at the forward integration side of things. If you're looking at mobilization of farmers, a lot of localization is emerging. So these supply chain disruptions have given incentive to people, rather addressing need than their own personal greed, to get into something whereby they're trying to localize it. For example, in the IT sector, a lot of people don't feel very stable about their jobs, and a lot of them are migrated back to their local towns. And what has essentially emerged from this is that localization, especially in the food space. So they want to bring formats that are otherwise were prominent in Tier 1 cities, but your Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas are actually growing by leaps and bounds. And today your rural economy is gathering momentum purely because of a displacement of masses back to those places, which is a post-COVID macro phenomena, I would say. So we are actually getting a lot of inquiries from entrepreneurs who are getting subsidies from government schemes to grow localize in their areas to get into either primary processing or secondary processing. And this is a phenomena that's being that's gathering momentum. Initially, it was always Tier 1 city focused because that's where people thought their markets were. But right now, I think that this is an emerging space and it's going to continue rising. But yes, the government has played a major role. But at the same time, it's not like a freebie structure. They're trying to incentivize people to get into it, but it's not a spoon-feeding phenomena. So it's not that people are going to be entitled and probably die along the way due to that basic entitlement that has killed a lot of industry in the past. Yeah.
Right. Obviously, food being such a huge sector, there are, lots and lots of questions. But I would want to pick up on a few. And the first one, Mr. Shivkumar, is for you from Asha. It says, nutraceutical product for women, health has been developed and patent has been applied. Now, what is the best way of getting into the market, and what kind of marketing strategies do they have to look at, and how do I compete with the big players? One of them is Nestle.
Yeah, I'll answer the last question first. How do you compete with big players? You don't need to compete with big players. It's very simple. See, I'll tell you one good example. There is a product called Bindu Jeera Plus in Bangalore market. Yeah, you know what happened? PepsiCo actually launched a product against this particular indigenous product. That was a very interesting story. And PepsiCo product failed miserably. So that was a success story of an indigenous product. Any beauty product, right? If you can look at Hindustan Unilever ads now, used to be Fair and Lovely. Now they are saying, Glow and Lovely or something like that. They changed the name. So this is to cater to the growing trend of catering to your local population, because Fair and Lovely, right? People don't want to be fair. The skin needs to be clean. That's all the scenario is. Now they are saying previously, right? You'll become whiter. Now you forget all these things. Don't try to compete with big players. You create your own line of product, and since you are saying that you applied patent for the product, obviously there should be something unique in the product, which itself is a huge advantage to start with. If you are making the same product as any other competitor, then you'll be in trouble because they have more money than you to start with, and they have more supply chain network than you. Since you have the patent, right, that is your selling point. Your IP is going to be your selling point. So what are the channels in which you can sell? I would say the best channel for women-related product is influential marketing. All you need is endorsement from a very influential female who is active on any sort of platform. Basically, if either a YouTube channeler or anybody who will endorse your product continuously. Let it not be like a one-time exercise. You engage somebody who will continuously use your brand and get your brand to the. It's very easy to reach, get a woman's beauty product to the market. It's not like food, as soon as that, because of the population in India and the lack of indigenous, beauty products, we have a huge scope there. It is not utilized properly because people sort of let go in their marketing stages. That is where product would be really good. A friend of mine from my university is doing like a home, home made beauty products. It's she's not great with marketing, but the products are really good. It's just word of mouth. So that is how it's growing. But if we can catch hold of a influencer, or more influencer, then you can definitely push the product into the market. And my one advice to you is that right from day one, don't look at your profit. To any entrepreneur who's starting here, either women's beauty product or food product, never count your profit from day one. That is not how it's going to work. You build your volumes. That is going to be the name of the game. You build your volumes. Companies are growing big not because they earn more profit, but because they do more sales. Concentrate on that. That is the key thing that you should be answering. Your product, your simple target should be your product should be used at least with 10% of women in Bangalore. Take that scenario and start pushing it. Forget about placing a product. It should be in the hands of 10% of women of the particular demography you're targeting. They should be using it. So keep that as a simple thumb rule and go for influencer marketing. It should be, I think you can do a good job. All the best for you.
Sure, sure. In continuation of that question, Shivkumar, there is another question by Prabhakaran Loganathan. Basically, he wants to see what is the kind of opportunities available in the Ayurveda and naturopathy sector.
See, Ayurveda is all about IP. You can't claim that it cures something unless it cures something. That is why for Ayurvedic medicine or any kind of medicine that you basically eat, you won't find a lot of ads in the TV or social media anywhere, because people, unless they are very confident that it works 100%, you can't advertise the fact. And also, generally, medicines are not advertised. So your only channel left for you to mark, there is a good opportunity there, but this channel is not your online channel. This is basically offline network building channel. You should build your distribution network through which you do the sale. For that, I think you need experience. If you're an entrepreneur, you appoint a good sales manager or a general manager who will take care of that burden for you. And if you yourself are good at that, you build that network. Already you have a built network, you start, target in Bangalore, go outside Bangalore, wherever city you are in, you target that city and go outward from there. But this is an offline network, and this requires your distribution network building capabilities, or you should use that network to market your product. But there is a good opportunity here, especially for Indian population. Yes, we use a lot of Ayurvedic products in your day-to-day life, so there is a good opportunity.
Sure, sure. Thank you. Question to you, Mr. Vikram. Basically, Mr. Shrikant Nayak, I know you have talked a little bit about the changing food habits and all. Mr. Shrikant Nayak wants to, in specific, get to understand if food habits are changing, what is the kind of sector that he has to look at in the next, 5 to 10 years? Basically, what kind of sectors that they have to get into?
So, address that specific food habits as tandem with what Mr. Sivakumar said. He has to find his target market and see his own capacities, basically, and see how he can address that. Does he have the skill sets to address that? Does he have to work with other processes where he's planning to just develop the product through them and then get it marketed, targeting that specific segment? Because food habits is not a macro phenomenon. It's not. It's starting to segment a lot. Segment based on multiple demographic factors. And he has to directly do his research at this point in time to see what is emerging and how is that going to emerge. And is that a sustainable emergence? Suddenly there was this craze for quinoa in between. But quinoa, it just died out entirely as well. I mean, it's not gathering the kind of momentum that people assumed would be there. Stevia, for example, people were thinking that, it's going to change the way people consume sugar, but at the macro level. But that did not happen. That did not happen. There are some, but never when you're looking at it at a micro point. And you have to understand how that particular consumer within that demographic is going to be looking at it. You have to also factor in affordability as well. Will people be incentivized to take this other product that you're developing, trying to address an emerging demand? You see, and at this phase, it's a transformational phase in every industry, every sector, not just food processing, not just food marketing or anything. In every industry, things are completely getting revolutionized, I would say, based on changing consumer behavior and further new product offerings. So a new product offering addressing a certain gap certainly will provide lots of scope and opportunity for that. But it's only time that will tell, and the readiness of this entrepreneur to take the risk and jump into that based on an analysis. Is there a long-term phenomena, or is it just a short-term kind of fad that is coming? Because there are multiple fads that are emerging. A lot of people have jumped into fads and failed. But is that fad going to be a sustained change in behavior, which is going to provide you an opportunity to address that in the long term, is the big question. But I cannot directly answer this question in recommending a certain thing. It's only time that will tell, and the willingness of that person to see where their skill sets lie, and are they willing to tap the opportunity to address a gap? Yes, that can certainly happen.
I know we have already overshot the time, but Srikanth has a follow-up question on that. Addendum basically is that vegan from meat base. I really didn't get the question itself. Yeah, vegan from meat base. Okay, maybe what he's probably looking at is going vegan, a big trend that's happening.
It is a very big trend, especially
Right.
in the urban middle class. It's a huge trend. And if you're looking at that the size of the market of the middle class is very big, and if you can capture some gap in that, like people are making cashew nut based butter, or they're making different forms of milk from almonds and God knows all sorts of different kind of commodity things that I could not hear. And honestly, I think vegans are a group of people as a mass. When I've looked at vegans, they all have one common trait, is that they are really going the extra mile into going vegan. So in other words, any product offering that they're going to give in that subsegment of addressing vegans is certainly going to do well. Because there are not enough in the market. I mean, I'm really sorry to come up with this word, but I call them the vegan terrorists, because a few friends I have who are vegan can have an entire meal and make me feel guilty about everything that's on my plate. Like, and trust me, that's an influencing factor. It is, and your direct influencers are those consumers. And they're like a clique, huh? They're like a proper group of people. They profess to each other so much that adaptability of vegan products, I think that gentleman has got his target segment right, and it's a wide scope of opportunity, very wide. Gluten-free, all these are emerging, and they're there. They're going to be there in the long term. Yes.
Sure. I would like to, obviously, although the heart is not willing, but the mind is saying that it's already 12 o'clock. We have passed 1 hour of this conversation. We would obviously want to have a lots more, conversation on these topics. We have heard a lot, right from healthy fast food to, vegan terrorists, and a whole, lot of, new words that we have come across. Obviously, there is a lot of demand in this sector, and also lots and lots of people who want to come into this sector and wanting to do something in the food manufacturing as such, right from mass production kind of items to the healthier and more niche kind of products. So a great takeaway from this sessions from this session. And I would like to obviously thank the Vision Karnataka Foundation, who has been our partner in this entire exercise, and also the UNDP, who's been doing phenomenal in the sector of MSME and promoting MSMEs, and working very well with the government of Karnataka as well. So thanks to them, and thanks, of course, to all the participants. And a huge round of applause to the panelists, Mr. Vikram Sankarnarayanan and Mr. Shiv Kumar, who have been benevolent in sharing their knowledge on this forum. And obviously, the time limit was too small for such a vast subject, which we understood now. Anybody who would want to get a certificate of this seminar, please fill in the participation form that you can see in the chats window, and you will get your certificate for that. Obviously, we have a lot of questions which we will kind of try to address it on a one-on-one basis, and share the answers. Thank you once again. Thank you for the panelists for your time, and also for the session, for the valuable insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaste. Yeah.
Namaste.